So I've got this RS2000 block in for a rebore, crank grind, lead-free conversion on the cylinder head, and fit the pistons to the conrods. It's already been machined because the pistons are at 30 thou. So we've ordered new pistons at 1 mil. The crank's already at 0.25, so we've ordered them at 0.5. It's going in a standard Mark 1 Escort RS2000, so it doesn't need to soup it up any. It was covered in paint when it come in, so I've put it through the acid bath, got all the paint off it, and we're going to start machining it today. So the next job on the RS2000 that I wanted to sort out was the piston and conrods. Basically, these are an interference fit, so we have to warm the rod up to fit the new pistons, and to remove the old ones we have to press them off. Now this particular engine has been rebuilt at some stage before, so what I always do is just put like a little mark on the conrod so I know which is front on the piston and front on the conrod, so it's just easy, visual and quick for when I'm heating up the piston and rod to fit the new one. However, what I spotted was this engine has run like this. So this is front on the piston because there's an F there, an F there, an F there and an F there. And then, so I've put a front on the conrod to suit the piston. And then, I don't know if you can see, this is the bore squirter that is cast into the conrod. Two of them have been put on the wrong way round. Now, my customer Jamie said that this always ran really bad and had like a funny knock to it. Well, this piston is offset by I think it's about 30 thou on the thrust side. So there used to be an old tuning trick where if you fitted them the wrong way, they used to say that you could get a few extra horsepower and foot-pound of torque from it because of how the thrust is working on the conrod. But that's been dyno tested a few times actually by people like Engine Masters and things like that, and it's proven not to actually be completely true. But anyway, I just thought I would show that because once again that's pretty bad machine building really, or engine building, for saying someone has actually had to fit these, because these pistons are at plus 30. To fit two of them the right way and two of them the wrong way is just silly really. So what I did grab is a standard conrod, so you can see that there's an F on this one for front. The piston has a little dot in it there for front, plus it has an arrow on the top for front. So the actual correct way it should be fitted is with the bore squirter going off to the left hand side. So what I'm going to do now is put that one back in a second and then just wash off my marks that I put on these two, and then put an F on this side so I know which way I can do it when I'm fitting them. So that's the RS2000 crank in the crank grinder, so I'm going to regrind that next. It's already at 0.25, so we're going to grind it to 0.5, 0.5. So 0.5 on the big ends, 0.5 on the mains. I've also sorted out the pistons. He's gone, Jamie's gone for a mild piston, so this is original manufacturer, so the quality of this compared to the quality of the old one is night and day different. They're even loads smaller, so they're going to be lighter, I would guess. I might even just give them a quick weigh just to see, just curiosity really. But these are going out to 1 mil oversize as well, where it was at 30 thou before, so we've gone out to 40 thou. So I'm going to start grinding the crank first and then we'll bore the block. So I'm going to start off by grinding the big ends on this. Like I said earlier, we're going to go to 0.5. So I've got it where the wheel's just starting to grind on the big end. I'm going to switch the suds on now. I'll put it on time lapse and we'll get it all ground up and see what it looks like at the end. So that's the crankshaft ground now to 0.5. I've measured it all, so it's all bang on the top tolerance at the moment. So what I'm going to do now is micro polish it, which will take a couple of tenths off it, which will put it absolutely smack bang, hopefully, in the middle of the two tolerances. So that's the crankshaft micro polish now. So I'm going to take it out the crank grinder, put it in the cleaner for a bit, and then I'll just let all the coolant drain out of the wheel or spin out of the wheels before I can switch it off. I've also gave the oil seal face a quick lick over, both on the front and the rear. Now we'll get on with boring the block and fitting the pistons to the rods. So I've checked these Ford Pinto RS2000 conrods with an original Ford rod, and they do measure up to be the same. So my customer wants to upgrade them to ARP stud and nut. So the next thing I'm going to do is press out the original studs and then replace them with the ARP. What I have to do then is, because the stud and nut is different to the original and they torque up to a different spec, I need to torque them all up and then measure across the rod in like a star pattern almost, or an X and a up and down, so I can get complete readings of all the different parts of the rod to see if it needs resizing. Hopefully it doesn't. It might just need blipping out if it pulls tight in places, but if it's baggy, then I'll have to machine the caps, machine the rods, and then resize the conrod. So that's my next job, is to press the studs in. So the next job on the RS2000 machining work is to fit some ARP stud and nuts into these conrods and check for size. So what I'm going to do is put the soft jaws in the vise, undo these, tap these original studs out, and then press these ones in, torque it up to what ARP recommend, and then basically measure from there to there in a diagonal, and make sure that these fall within the top and bottom tolerance of what Ford recommend. If they don't, then we'll just take them apart, machine the rod and the cap, and then resize the big end. Give them a good clean as well before we fit them to the pistons. So I've taken the standard stud and nuts out of the first conrod, and I'm going to clean up the two mating faces of the conrod so they're nice and clean, and then press in two of the new ARP studs. Now when you get the ARPs, there's two ways to torque them up. The first one is to stretch them, which is the correct way, but if we haven't got a stretch gauge, we could tighten them up to 40 foot-pound. Now it comes with some special ARP lube that stops it all pulling on metal to metal. I always empty them into this little tub there. So what I've got is, I've got a proper ARP gauge actually, but that's over in the other workshop. So this is my spare one. The stud is machined so it's got points in it basically. So that's where we put the stud, and then we can zero it out on the gauge like that. And then the easiest way I've found to do this is to torque it up and then fit this and check the stretch. So basically now I can just give this one a wipe over, and then I'm going to put some ARP grease around this part of the studding on the thread, so when I press it in, it goes in quite easy. Also, there is a correct and a wrong way of fitting these ARP studs into the conrod, because what we don't want is this lip here biting into the corner of the conrod here and then not actually sitting down on its main part. So all it would do is it would sit on this corner here and try and pull the stud in, so we don't want that. So we've got to make sure we fit them like that too. So that's the first two studs fitted to the conrod. These nuts, they're not tight, but they are bottomed onto the cap of the rod. So what I'm doing now is just checking that this gauge, whoops, I'm just checking that this gauge is zeroed. So that's not, I need to just zero that. And I'll check this one as well. That one is 0. So if I leave that one at 0, and then remember that that's a couple of thou below, and then I'm going to torque this to 40 and then measure again. So that's my torque wrench set to 40 foot-pound. Sam's just been using the vise to do a cylinder head, so I just quickly need to get rid of that. Put the jewels in so it doesn't damage the conrod. And then what I do is I go to 21st by watching the gauge on the torque wrench, like that. That way I know that I'm just doing the ARPs up nice and even. And then 30. And then straight round to 40. And then the paperwork says that we need to get this to about 6 thou of stretch. Just 5 thou on that one. Okay, so that one was -2, so we're at 5 thou. So what I'm going to do is just go around to about another 5 foot-pound of torque. And then remeasure. Yeah, that one there is 6 thou. And that one there is showing 4 thou, but we started at -2, so that's 6 thou as well. So 45 foot-pound is the setting to give these a 6 thou stretch. So now I've done that, what I'm going to do is set up the bore gauge for the big end journal size or conrod size, and we'll have a measure up. So I'll show you the catalogue to get the sizes out of, how we get that reading, and then we'll set the bore gauge up and we'll have a measure up. So I'll show you all of that. So what I'm going to do now is just put the conrod in the vise like that. Once again in the soft jaws. And then give it a wipe out as well. Just like that. Right, we get the catalogue and I'll show you how I work out the housing size. So when using this buck, what I'm looking for is the size in the inside diameter of this conrod here. So this is the crank sizes in this column here. This is the material, and this is the housing size, either the main bearing size or the big end bearing size when we come down here. So what I want basically is to set my micrometer up to this setting here, which is 55mm bottom tolerance, 55.02 top tolerance, but I'll do it in imperial, so 2.1654 to 2.1661. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up to the tightest tolerance, and then we'll have a measure up once all these are torqued up. So I've set my bore gauge up, and what I'm going to do now is just carefully place it in there and take a reading from it. And if I move this up here, so it's exactly the right size on that plane. And if I can just position it there, and then it's half a thou big on that plane, so that's well within tolerance, and the same half a thou on that plane. So if the other three rods are the same as that, we're doing all right. So I'll torque the other ones up, check that I've got the stretch right, and then have a measure up. And if I need to adjust any, then I'll obviously record it. So the RS2000 block is now in the cleaner. I've honed it all to size, and I'm just washing the swarf and the honing oil off it. The last job I've got to do for my customer is to fit the pistons to the conrods. Now these are an interference fit. So you can't, it's not just a case of just easily fitting them. We have to warm the end of the conrod up. Now there's various ways we can do this. Some people hold them, put oxygen acetylene torch in a vise and then just keep heating the top up, which there's nothing wrong with that, but because you're using a flame on it, it's not actually good for the conrod. It needs to be warmed up with no flame. This machine is built specifically for this. This is a Sun and conrod heater. So what we do with this is we set up the piston into this part and set the depth of the gudgeon pin with this stopper at the back, and then I warm the conrod up until this is all sort of burning away, but it doesn't change colour. We don't want it where it goes blue. We need to catch it just before that point. So we can leave them in here for a little while they're warming up, and then once they've warmed up, we've got to be really quick because I need to put the conrod in the piston and then quickly slide the gudgeon pin in, let me show you, like that, before it all nips up. We don't want it to nip, because once it nips up, it's basically jammed, and then there's a risk that we'll crack the piston when we're trying to just sort this out. We'll crack the piston if we try and release it, so it is a bit of a fiddly little job to do this. Need to make sure I've set this up perfectly. It's nearly there now. So that's that one fitted. So now this all goes tight as the heat travels through it, and then as it cools down, the gudgeon pin will release in the piston. And then what I do is I just put a little bit of oil down there just so it can travel through as well. There we are. So we just prep this one up ready. That one's now ready, so just give it a couple of little bursts of heat. And there we go, it's nipped it now. Put the next rod in. Stuff in the way here. Now that one still needs a fair bit. And then what I'll do is show you, not that one, that one's hot. Both quite hot. And then basically when you move the piston from one side to the other, the gudgeon pin should be exactly the same. So if look, I move it all the way to there, it comes flush with the piston boss there. And then if I move it all the way to there, it's the same. So I know that they're fitted absolutely bang on. I mean, what I can use is a thermal imager as well, so I can measure the temperature of the rod so I know that it's the right amount of degrees C. But just with experience, I can tell when it's just starting to change colour. See, that one's still grabbed that, so I can't actually move that at the moment. There we are. And then the last one. Not ready yet. There we are. That's all four of the RS2000 pistons and rods fitted. I've still got that at the moment, it's just loosening off. There we are. And once again, just check that they are fitted right there. Perfect. So what I'm going to do now is let them cool down a little bit. I'm going to put the pistons back in the box for my customer and wrap the rings up so they don't get damaged. I'm going to go and jet wash the block off because that's now bored and honed, so I'll quickly show you the end result on that, or the end finish on that, and then that's the RS2000 completed. And that's the RS2000 block. So this has been through the acid, I've refaced the top because it was a bit of a mess, and then I've bored it and honed it to suit the mild pistons. Really nice finish in there, good cross hatch, nice radius on the top. So I've let my customer know that that's ready for him to collect. I think he's going to try and collect it today with a bit of luck, and we'll move on to the next job. So I've had another Xflow Formula Ford engine come in for check-in. It's the same customer as the last Formula Ford engine. So I mean, it's the same guy that's built this engine as well, so I haven't stripped it yet, but I should imagine it's all going to be pretty good inside. I've actually spoken to the other engine builder and just to let him know that I've got the engine here. So I'm going to record this one coming apart as well and show what's inside when it's stripped. While I'm doing that, I'm just reboring one of the 2.3 pickup truck engines. But where I take these out from 86mm to 88mm, I have to do that in 2 bores. But there we are. I'll get this one stripped and we'll see what it's like inside. Oh, the one thing that I did check straight away is the rotor arm, to make sure it wasn't like the last one, and it is completely different. The rotor arm has got about the right gap between the end of the rotor and the inside of the distributor cap. So I'm going to just take some of the hoses off and put them in a separate box for now, take the distributor out, put that in a separate box, and then just start disassembling it and getting all the nuts and bolts ready to go in the cleaner. That's all the ancillaries off the Xflow. The only fault that I found so far is the block's cracked here and here, but my customer already warned me of that, so it wasn't a surprise. Once again, lovely porting work on it, so I don't feel like I've got to improve on that any, because it's a good job. But we'll keep on stripping. So on this second engine, there is a few differences straight away. The crankshaft has been machined differently to the first engine. In fact, I think it's a different make of crankshaft. I'm sure the first one was an arrow, and I think this one is a Farndon. It doesn't look the same as the first one, so I'll know more when I get it off. Also, this is using ARP big end bolts, which the other one was on standard bolts. Looks like it's in very good condition. This oil seal here has just started sucking itself in because it's dry sumped, so that's one job that. Oh, in fact, the casing's broke here, and then the seal sucked itself through. So I might either replace this casing or see if I could do something about retaining the seal in there. I don't think it would ever suck all the way in, but you can see that it's tried to do it. I've taken the measurements from the piston crown as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is take all the camshaft out. So I'm going to undo this lock tab here, undo these 1/2 inch set screws, and then there's 7/16 screws there, and then the cam will slide out. It's definitely going to need a new set of rings, but I'll carry on stripping it down. So that's the Formula Ford engine all stripped, and I mean, this was my customer's main race engine, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with the build of it, it's all fine, but it has worn in places, which race engines wear. That's not the previous engine builder's fault or anything, but it's as a quick rundown of the engine, it's had a repair here and it's been brazed here, so I should imagine at some stage it might have let go. The bearings are a lot worse than the first engine, but you know what, it's a race engine, they do wear. I don't know if that's picking it up. So I mean, the bearings would get changed anyway, but on the last engine it didn't really need it, apart from on the outer parts of the bearing where it was where the crank was probably machined with a little bit of taper to it. The next job for me to do is to get all this in the wash, get it all where it's nice and clean. I'll order a full set of bearings up for it. I'll order a set of thrust washers. I'm going to measure the cam, because the cam, it's in good condition, but I've got a sneaky feeling it's just wearing the very top of the nose of the cam. So I'll run that up and see if we could take. So that's the second Formula Ford engine done. I recorded this when it come in the other day, or last week, to be stripped, and I think I said I was going to film it, but unfortunately, due to all the work that we've got on at the minute, I haven't really been filming as much as I wanted to. I thought I'd show it you done. It's another good engine, built by the same guy as before, for the same customer. So we've changed the colour, we've checked the balance, put a new clutch on it, new rings, new bearings, polished the crank, gone through the cylinder head, reset the tappets, all been through the acid bath, checked the cam timing, and yeah, it's now ready for Richard to pick up today to get into the Formula Ford, because I think he's testing next week or something like that. So yeah, it's all back together and I'm just waiting for him to turn up. Looks awesome, hopefully it'll go well.